end of the Masechta, Shah talks about, you have the discussion at the last Mishnah of the Masechta. Rabbi Shimon mentions. Rabbi Shimon says, "Makom shi tiru l'cha chachamim mishalchon nosnu lach she'ein shelo tiru ela mishum shvus." So why does that belong over here? Rashi explains that the Gemara actually explains that it refers back to earlier statements in Masechta Eruvin, and Rashi and Tosfos discuss why it's dafka over here at the end of the Masechta. So the Rebbe also talks about it in his Hadran. So Maharsha mentions over here a concept that this is all related to the idea of shalom. The idea is, in other words, that why the Chachamim, the Chachamim are allowing, it's related to mitzvahs. The Chachamim are allowing all these different loopholes that we have throughout the Masechta, as far as Eiruvei Chatzeros and as far as Eiruvei Tchumin, and this and that and the other, and Reb Shimon is being makel even more than that, in order to make it possible to do mitzvahs. Which is why he says the Masechta ends, we have the several things that it mentions that they could do in the Beis Mikdash and not in the Medina, because those are things that are needed for the mitzvahs of the Mikdash itself. And then he goes on to bring something from the Yerushalmi, that in general the whole concept of Eruv Chatzeros is related to the idea of Shalom. There's a story that the Yerushalmi tells in a couple of places in our Masechta, where there were two families that weren't two women in a chutzner that weren't getting along. But then one Erev Shabbos, one of them sends her son around to collect the food for the Eruv, and the other, when he comes to this other lady's house, she gives him a hug and a kiss, and then he comes back home and tells his mother very proudly about it, and she realizes, oh, this lady liked me the whole time. I didn't realize, B'chlal, why am I not getting along with her? She obviously likes me, she likes my kids, and so the Eruv Chatzeros made shalom between them. So he goes on to say, therefore, so the idea is the Chachamim wanted that, like this, you have people are able to neighbors are able to carry out things into a chotzer, and you're able to make an Eruv Chatzeros and go someplace where you otherwise wouldn't have been able to on Shabbos, and go visit a neighbor, or go visit, not a neighbor, whatever, so go visit somebody in the next town over, and that helps make shalom between Jewish people. And he actually finishes off, he finishes off with a lashon, Avzeu mipnei hashalom, v'keil hashalom yosim shalom b'prat shnas shalom. He finished writing his pirush in the year shalom, shin ayin vav, gematria shalom. So that the Masechta is very much connected with the idea of shalom between the Jewish people, between one yid and another. Which actually, as far as Psachim, not only what you just said about the idea of bodkenes achametz and getting rid of the yeshus, but later on in Masechta Psachim you have that the Korban Pesach, even though when you get down to it, every Yochid brings their own, it's called a Korban Tzibur because the whole Tzibur brings it together. The whole Tzibur becomes ba'achdus and brings it together. And then you eat it b'chavura. You don't just sit and eat a Korban Pesach by itself, by yourself. You even have a day. You have a day. Okay, it's not accepted. La halacha in shechnas haPesach ala Yochid. The halacha is you can shech the Pesach for a Yochid, but usually you have a chavura. So you don't have noiser of it. But the idea is that you have people joining together and eating together b'shalom. There's also in connection, you were mentioning about the Masechta begins and ends with the Beis Mikdash, which is also the idea of bringing all of Shesham Ol Shvatim Shivtei Ka Shalu Shloimi or Shalayim, that we have the Beis Mikdash brings us all together in Shalom, and therefore very appropriately the Masechta Taka begins and ends discussing the Beis Mikdash, and it also relates to the concept of what an Eruv is all about. You mentioned before from the Hadron of the Rebbe that the idea about how you're taking the outside world and bringing it into your orbit with an Eruv Chatzeros, with an Eruv Tchumin or whatever, which is what the Beis Mikdash, Chaloine Shkufim Atumim, the windows are constructed in such a way that the Ur of the Beis Mikdash is going out and encompassing the whole world. The world. You can say also let's talk about the whole world. The whole world is a sphere. It's a ball and we actually have in the Masechta, it talks about circles in a number of places. A circle is made of 360 degrees. Shin Samach Shas is actually our world is Shas. Our world is also what the Rabbeim, the Rabbeim often sign their name Shneir's son as Shas Shin Samach, and not Bashkacha Protis. In fact, the Masechta, you look at the first and last words of the Masechta. The Masechta begins with the word Mavui and ends with the word Rabbanan. Add the two of them together, it equals 360 Shas. So the Masechta is all about bringing the entire world, the entire 360 degrees into the world, into our orbit of Kedusha, of the Eruvin, that we go and join the whole world together and bring out to it the of the Beis Mikdash, and then bring the whole world and specifically all the Jewish people in it, and from us it goes to the whole world into a state of shalom, into, as the Maharsha says, Keila Shalom Yasim Shalom.